Alright, so I'm in a reading slump. Hi, how are you? Hope you're well, by the way. But I'm in a reading slump. Again, it feels like I'm in one every 2 weeks. This year has sucked, but I want to try and get out of it. And so I thought, what better way to try than to simply just do it through a video and kind of actually force myself a little bit, because taking a break from reading hasn't been working. So I'm going to bring you on this journey of me desperately trying to figure out how to get out of the slump, and hopefully come the end of it, we are either completely out of it or very close to being out of it. So I guess we'll see. First book that we're reading to get out of a reading slump is Kiss of the Selkie by Sonia Odette. I love this author. She has come in clutch 2 times before, because this is book 3 in this series, when I want to get out of a slump. This is the Entangled with Fae series, and each book is a fairy tale retelling. Book 1 was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, book 2 was a Cinderella retelling, and book 3 is obviously a Little Mermaid retelling. I usually save her novels for when I need something to get me out of a slump of some kind. I'm well into this novel by now, as you can tell. I'm about 119 pages into it. I'm on chapter 13. That's what the pages look like, in case you're curious. And I feel kind of iffy with this one, unfortunately. It's not the writing style. I still love the writing style, but my only problem is usually I fall into these books really quickly because they're romantic-y, they're easy to read, there is world building, and like it is a good fantasy world, but it's not something that you need to have a brain on for. It is just something that you can pick up, read, and use minimal brain power, which I do find is important for myself when I'm in a slump, because the type of slump that I'm feeling isn't an audiobook slump, it's a book slump, and I just find that every time I pick up a book to sit and read it, I just really don't want to read. I think I'm fatigued by reading, and so I just need to pick up books that don't feel like I'm looking at words on a page. It feels like I'm watching a film in my head. And her books usually do it for me because I can see them very easily in my brain, and like I said, they're simple to read, they're not difficult. But the problem with this one is it's been a very slow start, in my opinion, compared to the first 2 novels. And also this one feels a lot more info dumpy than the other 2. What I really liked about the other 2 novels is that you just slowly learn about the world as necessary. You know, so in book 1 you just learn a little bit about the world, and then it's mostly about the romance and the Beauty and the Beast plotline. But then in book 2 you take that information you learned in book 1 and built on it a little bit, and I really liked that. I liked that it was a slow world building and you just get the information that you need as it goes, so that you're not overwhelmed with info dump, because if you've watched my videos, you know I absolutely despise when authors just info dump on you to the extremes, and this one really does feel like that. Our main girl, Macy, is a very sheltered Selkie that apparently knows nothing about being a fae, even though she's a fae princess, which is crazy to me. Like, she doesn't even understand fae magic fully, which is insane. Like, that's how sheltered she was. And so a lot of this has just been info dumping from other characters to her. And granted, this is our first Selkie character that we're following, so some of the information is interesting, like knowing that she has a seal skin and she has to take it on and off. But just the way that it's gone about it, it feels like there's like an interesting chapter of something happening, and then the next chapter is just an info dump, and then the next chapter is something interesting happens, but then most of it is info dumping, and then it's just, I'm over 100 pages in, and it's felt like I've just been fed information forcefully with a spoon that's way too big, and I'm just not really vibing with this one the way I wish I was, and that's upsetting. But I'm hoping we've started to get to like the actual plot that's on the back of the novel, and so I'm hoping that we actually start to get to the interesting part and that the info dumping is over, but not the type of start I normally have with Sonia Odette, and I'm disappointed a little bit, but hopefully it goes up from here. If not, I might cry. I did actually end up DNFing Kiss of the Selkie. I just really didn't like it. I wasn't enjoying it at all. And then I ended up looking at the reviews of the novel on Goodreads because I wanted to see if it was just me, is it my slump, or is this book actually a dud compared to the rest of the series. And other people that didn't like it said it wasn't nearly as good compared to her other writing, and it's the lowest rated book in the series. So I took that as my sign that it is this novel, not me, not my slump. And so I did DNF it at 50%, which was chapter 25. The reason I did, I've already kind of touched on, so I'm just going to very briefly talk about it, but the main character was so incredibly annoying. She was daft and stupid. She was a fae princess that knew nothing about fae magic, that knew nothing about human lives. She just lived as a seal the entirety of her life, and it made her not fun to follow. And the problem is, I don't mind following characters that are uninformed or characters that are learning with me, if that makes sense. But considering this was also the third book in a series, she was telling me information I had already known about, and then there's things that she didn't know that I knew, and she was just very incredibly frustrating to follow, and it just made her come across as incredibly dumb. Her personality changes depending on who she's with quite drastically, and there were moments where it felt like she was out of character because we've only seen her act like one way, which is kind of quiet, withdrawn, not really chatty except with Pedaxis. But then she goes back to the theater and she sees two people, and all of a sudden she has like her hands on her hips with like, get a load of this guy type of personality, and she's like leaning on someone's head all quirky, and it just felt like she completely shifted into a different person for that moment, and we'd never seen her act that way. That type of relationship with those people hadn't been established previously at all, and so it didn't make any sense, and it was very just, again, frustrating. To top it all off, the story is very insta-love. She was into him after about an hour, less than an hour of speaking to him probably. And he's also supposed to be like this racist, fae hating murderer. And I mean, she's sent to kill him, but then she starts to fall for him. And he's done nothing to prove that he's not a fae hating murderer, which just kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit, because it's like, how are you gonna fall for that guy? And I know that's kind of a trope, but the thing is, usually they start to fall after they've seen them a little bit, learned about them, and realized that maybe what the world knows of them is not entirely true, and that hasn't happened here at all. And then finally, the main character keeps referring to the male main character's muscle as blubber, which made me want, the first time that was used, I nearly put the book down, and then she kept doing it, so it wasn't good. I feel so upset about this. I'm really, really hoping that the final two books in the series are much, much better. I loved book 1 and 2, so my hopes are still high, but it is such a shame that this book was such a dud. And we're just gonna have to move on. So the next book is actually kind of it was a bit of a thing. I actually DNF'd it this morning. I was only 8% into the novel. I'd only read maybe 40 pages. I didn't even mark that I was reading it. I didn't mark that I had DNF'd it. I just kind of left it because I didn't want to deal with it. But I was going to read Lights Out by Navessa something? Alan, maybe? I'm not entirely sure what her name is. And the reason I wanted to is because I just really wanted to read a romance book where the MMC drives a sport bike. I was just really, really in the mood for that. But unfortunately, just not my type of thing, you know? That specific book, like, yes, it's a rom-com, but it's still a dark comedy. He was stalking her. It was an erotica. And it was just like a lot, you know? I read when I wake up, and I was like reading about her becoming aroused at work while watching his TikToks. And it was a lot at 7 in the morning. So I was just like, I can't do this. I'll do research. I'll figure something out. If I still want to read a biker book, I'll find something while I read the current book that I'm reading, which is actually Enchantra by Kaylee Smith. So I read Phantasma last year and I kind of devoured it a little bit. There were a lot of things about it that I didn't like, and it's not nearly a favorite, but for some reason it just kind of stuck with me, and I love the gothic feel of it. Like I said, I devoured it. I read it so quickly, especially for how thick it was. And so the sequel came out earlier this year and I thought, you know what, why not just go for it at this point? So I'm only 2 chapters into it, like 3 or 4%. I'm not nearly far into it, so I can't really say how I feel about it yet, but I'm really hoping that even if I don't love this one, it gets me to want to read, if that makes sense. Because right now I'm not trying to find 5 stars, I'm trying to read things that would make me hooked. You know, that is what we're reading next, Enchantra. I will check in periodically, letting you know how it's going, and hopefully I actually finish this one, because we're about to approach the middle of July and I've yet to finish a book. It is incredible that this point is where the hunt actually starts, which is the main point of this novel. And it's even more incredible that I was complaining to my fiance about the fact that the hunt has yet to start and we're 41% into the novel, and that's the main point of the novel, when I realized that this book and Phantasma's premise is copy and pasted from each other. It is the exact same premise, and now that I've realized that, I really don't like this novel, because it's very disappointing that she just went and copied book 1 almost directly and did not really try and think of anything new. We're back because I'm starting to get really annoyed. We are in the first game of the hunt, and instead of doing something cool, they're playing 2 truths and a lie. It's so, I don't know, everything that has happened so far has angered me greatly. Alright, so I read this section just a little bit ago, earlier this morning, and so I wanted to read it to you now, just to explain why this book makes me want to pull my hair out, and why I'm very much starting to dislike it, and why I might very possibly DNF it. The sibling who picked this game and who's hunting found where they were hiding, and so Rowan went out to distract him so that she could run away, and so his familiar, a little fox named Umbra, bites her ankle so that she can run away from him, because else he'll kill her. And then she says, "I'm going, you little menace." And then it says, "Speaking was the wrong thing to do," as often was the case for her. And then Rowan screams at her to run, because the brother, his name's Grave, realized she's there, and now he's chasing her. And it's so incredibly annoying, because why, if you're playing a deadly game and the person who's trying to kill you is right there and someone is trying to distract them for you so you can run away, why would you speak? She keeps making these really dumb, stupid decisions. She keeps not thinking her actions through, and this is how I feel at this point. Like, I want to pull my hair out. She's pissing me off, genuinely, and I'm just like, it's too early to be this angry. I don't like her. I don't like the choices she's making. She's being stupid. She hasn't done anything smart in this novel whatsoever. Anyone trying to help her, she just screams at, and I think that's supposed to show that she's like a smart, strong, independent character, but it's just making her really annoying. Hi, so I actually did end up DNFing Enchantra. I stopped at the 52%, and it was a very difficult decision to DNF it, because it would have been my sixth DNF this month, which really truly sucks, but I hated it for so many reasons, honestly. Genuinely, this novel was just such a disappointment. I had my issues with Phantasma, but overall it did just end up being a fun, good read, and it was exactly what I needed at the time. And despite the issues, I managed to enjoy myself, which is the important part of reading, enjoying yourself. My first issue is that upon starting this novel, I realized that the plot was essentially completely copied and pasted from Phantasma. And if you don't believe me, then guess which novel I'm describing right now. Gothic manor, deadly games run by devils, forced proximity romance where they make a deal to help each other out. Did you say Phantasma or did you say Enchantra? Because I guarantee most of you said both, because it's the exact same plot. That rubbed me the wrong way, first and foremost. And then second of all, book 1 did it better than book 2, which is a problem in itself as well. But I kept reading and reading and reading, only to be disappointed by the fact that the games start at the 41% mark. The point of the book starts 41% into the book. What do you mean? What do you mean? No, that's my worst. And that's a large reason why I don't read blurbs a lot of the time, because it feels like they don't capture the book well. And in this situation, that's one of those times where it's like, the whole point of this novel was the deadly games and it starts at 41%. You're joking. And then to make that even worse, the first game that they play is a glorified hide and seek is not even unique. It's hide and seek, but just if you're found, you might die. But then Lost, and most certainly, most importantly, actually, Genevieve is one of the most annoying characters that I've ever followed in my entire life. Do not get me wrong. I love a stubborn character, especially if it's a stubborn woman. And if she's like this really confident, powerful, strong, stubborn character, I love it. Like, she knows her place. And we love when that happens. However, that also has to come with intelligence and self-preservation, neither of which Genevieve seems to have. She is incredibly bratty and way too proud to realize that Rowan has spent the entirety of his on-page time doing things to save her life and keep her safe. Like, yes, he was rude, but the entire time from the very first time we meet him, every single action towards her has been to keep her safe. And then she still just refuses to listen to him at all times. And then there are these parts where she is literally being hunted down to be killed, but she has to give her snarky comment and then it gives away her look. It's just like, she's not funny, she's not quirky, she's just really fucking annoying. She made me want to pull my hair out, quite frankly, and this was the type of novel that, like, I finished this days ago, maybe even a week ago, and I'm still getting angry thinking about it. So that's how that happened, and needless to say, I'm not out of my reading slump at all. Luckily, though, I do know what I'm reading next, and this is a novel that I've been wanting to read for such a long time, but the problem is it is book 2 in a series. I have heard that book 1 it's not bad, but it's not great, and a lot of people have recommended that you just start off with book 2, and so I've been debating for quite a couple years now on if I want to do that, because quite frankly, I just don't really enjoy, like, it. Anyway, I've been debating on whether or not to start with book 1 or book 2, because I want to enjoy the series, and if people are recommending starting with book 2, then I want to do that. However, I just have a problem with starting with book 2 in the series. I want to start with book 1. I'm just that type of person. However, I decided to make the leap of faith and start with book 2, and I've decided that if I really love the series, I can always just read book 1 at the very end and it will be fine. And honestly, maybe I'll enjoy it even more because I would have gotten to know the characters, and so it wouldn't be as bad for me as it were for other people that started with this series. So we'll see. But if you haven't gotten context clues yet, the next book that I will be reading is actually The Right Move by Liz Tomford. And the reason I wanted to pick it up is because, one, I've kind of just been missing sports romances a little bit. I used to absolutely love them, and then I kind of just grew out of the genre a little bit, but I do occasionally still miss it. But I'm not really a fan of Elle Kennedy, I'm not really a fan of Hannah Grace, and so I didn't really know what to do. And this is a sports romance series with different sports, which is fun. The Right Move specifically follows basketball, which is one of the two sports that I genuinely enjoy going to games to. That and ice hockey are my two favorite sports. It was a basketball sports romance, which intrigued me, but the biggest reason I wanted to read this is because the entire series is called the Windy City series. It takes place in Chicago, and I absolutely love Chicago. My fiance has been in love with that city since he was like 12, 13, 14 years old. He's been obsessed with it. He just really loved it. He's visited 3 times now. I visited twice. 2 of his 3 times were with me. So we went together. It was a graduation gift from his father. So we went together for that. And then the other time we found pretty decently priced plane tickets, and so we were just like, let's go. And so we went, and it was really lovely. We both really love Chicago. It's beautiful, the food's amazing, there's so much to do. As you probably know, especially if you watch my vlogs, we are city people. We love the walkability, we love the public transport, and so that just really drew me, because I was just like, I would absolutely just love to read a book that takes place in Chicago, especially because I remember reading My Roommate is a Vampire, and that takes place in Chicago, and I just loved actually kind of knowing what she's talking about. And so I've really been wanting to read it because of the location, and I've decided to finally just go for it because I want to kind of read a rom-com, so just why not this one, you know? So, as you probably know, I went into this novel knowing absolutely nothing about it or what it's about. I just knew that it took place in Chicago. And I will say, I wish the actual city played a bit more of a role in this novel. Honestly, if it weren't for the cover and the brief mentions here and there, I wouldn't even have known that this is in Chicago, but it's fine. I'm hoping maybe that the other books are better about it, and it's just because the male main character of this novel is quite secluded. But so far I'm 38% of the way through the novel. I'm really loving it so far. I love both the main characters. I think it's really fun. It's so easy to pick up and read, which I haven't felt that in a long time, and I'm really loving it. I'm really hoping that I don't get fatigued by its length. I'm trying not to think about it too much, but I'm really loving it. It's fun. The fake dating has been fun. This book so far feels like what I thought Lauren Asher's books would feel like, and so it's just been very nice, I guess you could say. But I do wish, like I said, Chicago played a bit more of a role, but I'm hoping that maybe the rest of the novels in the series do that. For anyone wondering, I didn't read Mile High book 1. This is book 2, and I started with book 2, and I'm pretty fine. There are definitely portions of certain characters that I missed, and I might go back to book 1 once I finish the series, but that won't be for a while. But yeah, so far it's been fun, it's been decent, it's been easy to pick up. This was exactly what I was in the mood for. I wanted to read this novel, and I'm getting exactly what I wanted, and it's really nice just picking something up that I want to read. And I really want to buy the physical copy of this one, but I'm trying to wait until at least 50% to make sure that I actually really do love it before committing to a physical copy. But she's doing me well. Hi. So I actually finished The Right Move already, and what a strange reading experience it was. So I didn't actually end up rating The Right Move anything, because the first 80% I thought it would be a minimum of 4 stars, but then the last 20% really rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know if that was the book's fault or if it was my fault and just me feeling icky because of the state of the world or what, which will make sense once I explain a bit more. But the last 20% just kind of ruined the book for me, but I also really loved the first 80%, and so I just genuinely couldn't give it a star rating because nothing felt right You know, anything below a 4-star didn't feel right, but 4 and up felt wrong as well, and so I just didn't give it 1. It helped me take a massive step out of my reading slump. First and foremost, it was exactly what I needed. It was exactly what I wanted. I really enjoyed it. There were so many things that I genuinely really liked about this book. First and foremost, it was very nice just reading a sports romance again. I didn't realize how much I missed them. I'm not like a sports romance girly necessarily. However, I do just enjoy them occasionally, and it's been a hot second since I've read one, and so it was just quite fun picking one up again. And then of course, I believe I mentioned this before, but I love Chicago. My fiance loves Chicago. We've been there multiple times. It's a great, wonderful, beautiful city, and so reading a book set in Chicago just was really lovely to mentally be there again. We did not get as much city as I hoped for in this novel, but the main character was too famous to leave his apartment, so I'm hoping that the rest of the books in the series are a bit more Chicagoian, I guess, and the actual city plays more of a character in the story. If not, that's all right. I think I would still enjoy the rest of the series, but it would be a bit disappointing since Chicago was the selling point to me personally for the series. And then I really enjoyed Ryan as a love interest character. I enjoyed that he really showed his feelings to her, and eventually, you know, words of affirmation came as well, but I really appreciated that from the very beginning he did things to show her that he likes her and eventually fell in love with her. And the things he did was very sweet, and it's all those small things that mean a lot, so that was really fun. I don't want to get into the things I disliked too much, just because, like I said, I think it might be a purely personal thing, and I don't want to like represent this book wrong. I don't even know if anyone feels the same way I did, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm not going to rant about it, but I just want to mention it since it did impact me, and maybe someone else can say if they felt the same way. Fun fact about me personally that is a bit important to understand is, although I am getting married, I don't want children. I don't want to live in a house in the suburbs. I don't want the traditional white picket fence house. That's just not me. That's not who I am. I want it to be me and my partner, and I want us to move around the world, travel around the world. I want to see as much as I can while I can go everywhere. I want to do everything. I just kind of want to live life for myself and for my partner. And so we're not a traditional couple that wants the 5-bedroom house, 4 kids, white picket fence out in the middle of the night. Like, that's just not us. I can understand why others might want that, you know? I just don't. However, that lifestyle does play a large role in this novel. It is our main character, Indy's dream to be a mother, which I didn't mind that at all. You know, like if you want to be a parent, whatever. Like, I don't get it, but I get it, if that makes sense. But it's going to sound really strange me saying this out loud, I'm realizing, but between Indy just constantly talking about wanting to be a mom, between a character getting pregnant, and the character has kind of been said that they didn't want kids until they met their guy, and then just like the general political climate of the world, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. It just really rubbed me the wrong way. It felt very, I don't know what words I'm allowed to say on YouTube, so it's hard for me to describe, but it felt very traditional and old-timey and pushing of a narrative that I really did not vibe with at all. And if you understand what I'm saying, then you understand what I'm saying, and that's enough. The way that Ryan and Indy just spoke about their dream life, like him buying the house, and he's like, I bought this house with the intention of filling every room. Like, that just, I don't know, that gave me such a big ick, that rubbed me the wrong way. It felt almost like breed kinky to me, where it's just like, not my vibe, not my thing. It completely rubbed me the wrong way, and I felt very gross reading it. And that's why I'm also saying that might be a personal issue, because I don't want kids. I don't ever want to be pregnant. Like, pregnancy is the most terrifying thing that could happen to me. So it might be completely myself, but the way that was spoken about by the main characters just really did not sit right with me. And then, like I mentioned, there was another character that got pregnant, and this character didn't want kids, but then like they changed their mind because they met the right guy. Hate that trope with a passion. I hate it. It feels like it fits a narrative that I don't agree with. I think it's dumb and pushy, and it's just like, why can't a woman just not want children? Why is it that a woman that says she's never wanted kids, she doesn't want kids, suddenly has to change her mind because the right guy came into her life? Like, no. Some women don't want kids, and I think that's ridiculous, and I really hated that it took that turn. I don't like it, and men aren't even that great, let's be honest. I think it's really icky. Again, it's pushing like a narrative to me that I don't agree with. I think that women should be allowed to not want kids and not be punished for it, not be told that they'll change their minds. I mean, the amount of times I've heard that alone is crazy. The first time I said I didn't want kids, I was like 11, and that stuck through my whole life so far. And then I would tell people that, you know, and they'll be like, oh, you're 15, you don't know that, you'll change your mind, wait until you meet your husband. One, or wife, get it right, Jesus. I know I'm with a man, but back then I was with no one. I could have had a wife. 2, let me not want kids. Why is, I don't know, I hate it. It feels like it's a part of that mindset where a woman's worth is based off of her womb working. I don't like it, not me, not my thing. And I'm gonna stop here because I don't want to like push too far on this topic. But all of that really bothered me. It made me feel gross, and that's why I couldn't rate it, because that ending really ruined it for me. Genuinely, next time I think I would just stop reading the book after the wedding scene. Just like, wedding scene, done, book's over, finished, khalas, you know what I mean? So yeah, but overall, especially now that I've had a bit of time to separate, I finished this a little bit ago because I did read another book for another video in between that one and the one that I'm currently reading, which is the last book of this video. So I've had time, and it still sits favorably with me. It's still a book that I enjoy. I still have it, and like I said, I'm going to continue the rest of the series at some point. I cannot wait to read Caught Up, I think is the next one. So yeah, I just want to say that these feelings are personal. If you have my mindset, you might feel the same feelings that I do. However, in general, like, I don't regret picking up this book at all, and I really enjoyed it, and maybe I would reread it. I'm not sure, but I will definitely continue the series. I just wanted to talk about the things that bother me because, one, I felt like I needed to explain why I rated the book the way that I did, and then 2, if you felt the same way, please let me know, because I feel lost. But on to the next one. Right, so the next and final book that I will be reading to get out of my reading slump is one that I can guarantee will take me out of my reading slump. I actually made a full video on it last year, so I will dink it. I will link it down below, so that if you want to see my full thoughts, I think it might be like spoilered thoughts, I don't remember, you can go watch that, because I won't be going into too much detail here since I've already put it in a video. However, the book that I will be reading is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I've been wanting to reread this book because, one, last year I read it and I really enjoyed it, and then with time I've just grown to love it more, like I constantly think back very positively on it. And so I wanted to reread it just to find a more accurate rating, find out if like I'm looking at it with rose tinted glasses or what. Two, the sequel is coming out relatively soon, and so I wanted to read it to just remind myself of the plot before it came out. I think there's another month or two at this point before it comes out. I don't know the exact date, but I didn't want to back them, so I'm reading it now instead. But I'm very excited. I already started it. Between this and The Right Move, I feel the will to binge read again, which before I had a very large focusing issue. I struggled to focus on the books that I'm reading, and I realized it would be like every time I read a page, I would have to like force myself not to grab my phone and scroll on TikTok or something, just because I like didn't want to read. However, with this one, I'm constantly just thinking about when I can pick it up again, and if I don't get time to pick it up in a day, I genuinely get very sad. So I'm very hopeful for this round, and I think it's going to be exciting. I'm very much looking forward to it. So I will see you once I'm out of this slump. Hi, if you're wondering where I'm sitting, it's on the floor next to my bed. I really did not feel like setting up today, so we're just making this work. But I did finish Bride. It was really fun. It really helped me with my reading slump, as I knew it would, and I ended up upping the rating from a 3.75 to a 4-star. The reason why I love this book so much is this novel is the closest thing to what I was reading on Wattpad as a teenager, but published professionally by a really good writer, written for me now rather than for 14-year-old me who was reading Wattpad. It's just so reminiscent of those stories in such a lovely way, and I love that I can pick it up and feel like I'm reading a Wattpad book written for me now, because I do miss Wattpad a lot of the time. Like, I can't tell you how many times I just sit and think like, do I pick one up? Do I just do it for shits and giggles? But I usually never do, because I just know I'd probably end up not appreciating it the way I did when I was younger. And then I also raised the review because I skipped the portions I didn't like the first time reading it. So I skipped the knotting scene. As soon as I felt it coming, I dipped straight to the next chapter. And then I also skipped the third act conflict scene between Lo and Misery. The reason I did that is because what he did to her, to me, was just slightly unforgivable. I don't want to say what it was because I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it, but to me, it was just one of those things where that's too far, and he didn't apologize for it until she went to him, and all of that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So I did skip that this time, which did make the reading experience a little bit better for me. However, I do have to say, I still wish that there was a bit more action. It feels like we were kind of trapped inside of Lo's house for most of the novel, which I didn't like too much because, I mean, it's a werewolf novel. I want to see the werewolf action. I want to see the vampire action. However, with book 2, the main character, I know the main love interest is a werewolf, and then I can't remember what the female main character is. She's either human or werewolf. I forget which one, but I think having it be the werewolf or human werewolf dynamic will lead to more action, so I am excited for that. And I really can't wait for Mate to come out. I'm happy that I read this now when I did and gave myself a little bit of time before the second book comes out, just so that I can have a little bit of space and I don't fatigue myself with the werewolf content. And overall, I would say this book helped me take one final step out of the reading slump. Like, I think I'm alright. That being said though, I think this comes out after my August vlog, so I can talk about it. I did just start a new job, and with wedding planning and everything, life just is a little bit hectic. And so I do think for the rest of the year, unless it's for a video, because I do still have a couple of reading vlogs that I want to make for certain books, I think I'm going to prioritize just mostly doing rereads, honestly, reading books that I know I love and that I'm very familiar with, and then picking up mysteries and romances that I've kind of put on the back burner the last couple years because I was so entrenched in fantasy. And I think all of the fantasy novels that I'm excited for, I'm just going to leave for next year or post wedding time, so maybe the end of this year. But I think I'm just going to leave those for when I'm mentally ready to actually take time to learn new worlds and new magic systems, and just kind of read books that I either know well enough to not need to learn anything, like the Cruel Prince trilogy I've been wanting to reread for a long time, for example, or, you know, all the witchy rom-coms that I've been wanting to read and carry on. And I think I'm just going to prioritize that to make sure that I don't put myself back into a slump. And then next year I will dive into fantasy again when I'm fresh and I have the space for it up here. I think that's just the best course of action for me right now, because otherwise I don't think I'm going to enjoy reading until 2026, and that's just not fun. Thank you, Bride. Thank you, Hazelwood. Always coming in clutch. Speaking of which, so excited for the Love Hypothesis film. I'm seeing all the TikToks and I cannot wait. The actor they cast for Tom, exactly what I saw in my brain. It's incredible. But thank you, Hazelwood. Love her so much. I think it's fair to say I'm out of my slump, and here's to the rest of the year just having fun and rereading novels and knowing where I'm at, and next year we'll start again with the fantasy. But if you like me or my videos, I would really appreciate a like, comment, and subscribe if you feel like it. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye.